Hey there, hope all is well. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of RTD News. And as you can tell from today's title, Illinois tax hike and a deepening pension debt, I'm going to be covering the current situation in the state of Illinois, all dealing with the idea that they may be the very first state in the union to actually need or to declare a bankruptcy, which has never been done in our history before. And so I have about 4 articles, as I mentioned, I'm going to share with you, all dealing with the current rate hike, as well as other issues as far as people leaving the state because of the uncertainty of their future, as well as the whole pension situation there and the stalemate, which is coming to an end, it seems, on the whole budget idea. But at the end of the day, it's nothing that's really going to solve the problems there, being that more promises were made than can ever be delivered upon. And so, as always, before I dive into today's articles, I'm going to leave a link where you can get a hold of those articles there. And also, if you're new to RTD, I want to encourage you to dive into some of the information to really begin to understand what it means to rethink the dollar by watching some of the RTD interviews from the RTD University page, as well as, if you're interested, testing your monetary IQ on getting a better understanding of how all this really became a major subject matter, because most people don't really know what money is. So other than that, let's dive into today's news. So I have about 4 or 5 articles, as I mentioned, that I'm going to share with you, and I'll leave the link below for you to check them out for yourself, to dive into them deeper to get a better understanding of what's going on. But as always, the goal is just to skim the surface and give you just a little bit of something to chew upon in understanding how this whole bankruptcy slash rate hike slash problems that Illinois is facing, how it really impacts all of us, because, you know, we're all under the same system, all in the same country, and all subject to the same woes from our government. But I want to start off by posing a question to you. What if your paycheck, or what if the taxes in your paycheck was all of a sudden increased overnight to fund, or to try to fund, a state that's already bankrupt and on the verge of bankruptcy, with no real true solution on how to get out of the crisis? How would you feel? I would imagine, such as myself, you would be kind of pissed and wanting to take action, which kind of leads to the idea of why a lot of people seem to be leaving the state of Illinois, because, you know, they're trying to fund a situation that's beyond being funded, in my opinion. So let's dive into today's articles as promised. So the very first article here is from the Chicago Tribune, and it says, "Morning Spin, New Illinois Tax Rates Takes Effect, State Says." The next one here is from ChicagoReader.com, and it says, "How Governor Rauner is Weaponizing the Illinois Tax Hike." The next one here is from ChicagoBusiness.com, and it says, "New Budget Threatens to Deepen Pension Debt." And then the next one here is from the Chief Investment Officer, and it says, "To avoid junk bond status, Illinois Treasurer gives Governor Rauner an ultimatum." And then the very last one here is from Chicago Tribune, and it is entitled, "Letter, I moved out of Illinois just in time." And so, as always, I'm going to start with the very first one, and just from there, skim through it a little bit and give you a little bit what's on the surface, and let you dive into it further for yourself if interested. So let's scroll down a little bit. So here we are. Very first article is from the Chicago Tribune, and it's entitled, "Morning Spin, New Illinois Tax Rates Hike Takes Effect, State Says." So let's thumb through it briefly. Here we have Illinois Speaker of the House, Michael Madigan, a Democrat from Chicago. And just to give you an idea of what's going on here, scroll down a little bit. It says, "With an Illinois budget in place and an income tax to help pay for, the state Tuesday gave HR departments the information they need to start deducting more work or more pay from workers' paychecks." It says the Illinois Department of Revenue announced new tax rates take effect in a release that shares the nitty-gritty details of implementing the changes that accountants and employers need to know. Scroll down a little bit more, and it says here, it says, "For most taxpayers, their employees will change withholding amounts based on a rate table provided by the department." The announcement read in the part. It says, "A summary of the tax changes can be found here." If you click that link there, you'll give you more details. It says, "Most people who have been paying attention already know the big picture, though." It says, "Under the budget plan, the personal income tax rate rose from 3.75% to 4.95%, while the corporate tax rate went from 5.25% to 7%. It says the new money helps pay for the first full state budget Illinois has had in more than 2 years. So just off rip there, you know, increasing taxes by at least basically 1.5 points for the personal income tax as well as the corporate, only going to lead to just more people deciding to find ways around being taxed more, which at the end of the day is not going to really help, you know, fund this budget that they're, you know, saying that it will. So a lot of counties and whatnot and other districts in Illinois will be holding meetings to kind of, you know, lay out foundations for how this tax increase is going to help them, which at the end of the day is really not going to. So just give an idea what the tax rate height is. If you're interested, you can click that link there for more details. Next article. Here we have from ChicagoReader.com. It says how Governor Rauner is weaponizing the Illinois tax hike. Give you an idea what's going on here. Shows the governor right over here up to my shoulder. It says Democrats either have to figure a way to diffuse Rauner's anti-tax rhetoric, or Illinois is in another 4 years of its lunacy. Scroll down a little bit, give you an idea what's going on. It says on July 5th, the day before the Illinois House at last ended the state's historically protracted fiscal stalemate by voting to override Governor Bruce Rauner's budget veto. It says Rauner came to the far southeast side to play populist in the manner of Donald Trump, sounding off like a regular guy, dropping G's left and right. The billionaire governor made his first unwillingness to compromise on the Democrats on a budget that was about to take a strong stand for the little guy. Says, quoting him as saying, the tax hike is like a 2x4 smacked across the forehead, Rauner said during a press conference held in a tavern in Hegovich. It says the people of Illinois don't want more taxes in their lives, which at the end of the day is very true. It says here, as absurd as it is, Rauner's going to be flogging the anti-tax rhetoric in the run-up to the 2018 election. So, which means Democrats either have to figure out a way to diffuse it or gasp. Illinois is looking at another 4 years of lunacy. Scroll down a little bit more. It says, but his anti-tax rhetoric resonates with swing voters who might or ordinarily vote Democratic. Scroll down a little bit more, give you what's going on. It says Rauner was trying to claim that he was standing up for the little guy against Wall Street. So it looks like the governor with his anti-tax rhetoric is portraying the image of, wanting to be more people-centered as opposed to big corporation-centered. And it says here, it says, of course, it's the other way around. It says his veto would actually increase Wall Street's profits because a lowering rate means higher interest rates. It says as higher interest rates mean a less money for necessary necessities or services for Illinoisans and more money for bankers. So if you're interested to find out more details about all this ordeal here, feel free to read this link here for more details. Let's move on to the next one. Here we have from Crane's Business in Chicago. It says new budget threatens to deepen pension debt. Let me give you an idea what's going on here. Here it shows a person kicking a can down the road, which seems politicians are good at doing. It says lawmakers in Springfield appear to face up to Illinois' grim financial realities when they passed the first state budget in 3 years. The spending plan approved by Governor Bruce Rauner's veto does take a few steps to address deepening fiscal woes ignored during the years of political stalemate between the governor and the Illinois House Speaker's Michael Madigan. It says when it comes to the state's graphs budgetary peril, however, in 2018 budget is another exercise in denial and can kicking. Says legislations did nothing about unfunded state employee pension obligations estimated at $130 billion, and that will surely drag Illinois under unless aggressive action is taken to reduce the shortfall. Says in fact the new budget could even enlarge the pensions fund sinkhole. State contributions to pension plans will decline by $1.5 billion in fiscal 2018, by far the largest single spending cut in the budget. It says at some $900 million of the reduction reflects wishful thinking about future investments returns at state employee pension funds. It says last year, overseers of the teachers' retirement system and other large state employee retirement fundies joined counterparts at public pension systems across the country in reducing assumed investment returns to around 7% from unrealistically high levels that prevailed for several years. So basically the idea that they are expected to receive 7% returns on those investments is not going to happen. So there needs to be made some adjustments. Give you a little bit more what's going on here. It says last year, let me see, but it has unpleasant effects to revealing that Illinois' pension gap was even larger than previously estimated. It says a lower assumed rate of return means the pensions need more money now to generate enough investment earning to cover future pension payments. And that in turn means legislators must allocate more current funds to pension contributions, not less. So basically sum that up, the idea that there's not enough money there now in order to actually meet the promises from here and this point going forward. More money is needed today, not in the future with all this tax rate hike, which they're saying may or may not help. But yet the idea that there's no money now to meet these funds is going to be a problem. So if you're interested read more about this information here, feel free to click the link below to dive into it for more details for yourself. Next one here. It says to avoid junk bond status, Illinois Treasurer gives Governor Rauner ultimatum. It says to prevent Illinois from becoming the first state in U.S. history issued junk bond status, State Treasurer and State CIO Michael French Monday gave Governor Rauner an ultimatum in the form of a 5-step plan. It says this move comes after approval of a budget package and a move by Moody's Investor Service to place the state's general obligation rating under review for possible downgrade. It says the credit rating agency had indicated that the new revenue and spending cuts alone are not enough to insulate the state against future credit downgrades, including junk bond status. According to French said in the statement, it says, I understand that Governor Rauner disagrees with the elected members of the House and Senate. However, should he not take these necessary steps, he is inviting the credit rating agencies to plunge Illinois into junk bond status, the results of which will lead to higher property taxes. So what he's saying is if this plan isn't adopted, it's going to basically lead into the downgrading of the state's credit worthiness, which is already, questionable with their ability to meet their obligations. So I don't really think this plan will help, but, it's their attempt to try to bring some resolution to this issue. It says to avoid the state moving into junk bond status, Rauner must undertake the following. Furich said, it says travel to New York, speak directly with 3 rating agencies and convince them that he embraces the decision of the legislature and will implement the budget package. 1. It says immediately take visible, responsible steps to implement the $6 billion in bonding authority, which will yield $3 billion in additional federal dollars to pay down the $15 billion backlog. To sign a funding model that ensures that local schools open on time. The 3rd model, it says clearly and proactively communicate the new tax rates with Illinois employers to ensure that revenue estimates and cash flow expectations are met. It says eliminate the divisive rhetoric that is impairing the state from moving forward. It says the divisiveness counters the civility and bipartisanship that rating agencies wish to see. It says, quoting here is Mr. Freeman saying the low rating from the rating agencies is reflective of the fact that Madigan's 32% permanent tax increase will not solve the problems created by decades of unbalanced budgets, underfunded pension liabilities, borrowing, and high debt. Even with the tax increase, the budget remains $2 billion out of balance for the fiscal year 2018. It says the best thing we can do is to work collaboratively to pass truly balanced budgets that pay down the debt, reform our pension system, and make the changes necessary to drive economic growth in our state. If you're interested in finding out more details, feel free to click the link below to read it for yourself. And the very last article here is from the Chicago Tribune, and it says a letter. It says, I moved out of Illinois just in time. So this here is a short video just giving an idea of how over the last couple years, how there's been a lot of statistics and data taken and surveys taken on how the population has continued to flee from the state of Illinois because of several different things, such as I mentioned, high crime, the stalemate between the budget and things like that, and just the poor schooling and the lack of funding for schooling and things like that. So been a lot of things as to why people are leaving. So here it's going to share a story as to why one person decided to leave, as they say, right in time. It says, I moved out of Illinois just in time to avoid income tax increase. I voted with my feet, and so I'm happy. It says, I have lived in Illinois my entire life for 42 years. I attended Eastern Illinois in Charleston, which the state nearly destroyed during the budget fiasco. I grew up in the south suburb of Calmont City, but lived in Palatine most of my college years. For years, I would proudly tell people I was from Chicago or Chicagoland. However, recently I felt like a fool for living in Illinois, where every time I paid my real estate taxes or looked at my W-2 and realized how much money I was paying with the state. In the fall of 2016, after getting yet another property tax increase notice, I currently assume another state income tax increase was coming, so I decided to leave Illinois. It says, I moved out of Illinois in February 2017 and will never be an Illinois citizen again. I will come back to visit friends and family, and on my visits, I will encourage them to leave as well. I am disgusted with myself for staying too long in Illinois. I took my respective income and gladly pay my fair share of taxes in my new home in San Antonio, Texas. My personal income tax has paid to Texas 0%. There is no income tax in Texas. Illinois is on a life support, and I saw no other option than to join the tax flight of Illinois citizens moving to better states. So at the end of the day, the state has taken on more debt that they can ever begin to repay, and handed out more promises to people, more primarily the public workers, in regards to pensions and all of the things that they've given out, the benefits of which there's no money to pay it. So ultimately, Illinois will end up being the first state, in my opinion, in bankruptcy, and that will be the triggering of a lot more states to decide that they too must choose a bankruptcy route, because they themselves have given out too many promises that they can't keep as well. So at the end of the day, it's just this is a story worth keeping an eye on, because as events unfold, as they try to raise taxes, they're going to continue to have to raise taxes just to keep pace, and then people are not going to want to be taxed, so they're going to find ways out of it, such as leaving the state, or just deferring their tax withholdings, or increasing it so they don't pay as much taxes right away. So there's no way out of this situation here, but I think Illinois is definitely a state worth keeping an eye on. And so let me know your thoughts on this whole situation in Illinois. Is this just an isolated event, or is this more to come? Is this telling of the times we're in? And other than that, just let me know your thoughts. I'll be interested in hearing. Enjoy your day.